Hey guys, welcome back to our weekly crypto wrap up. We have had such an interesting yet very volatile week, and I wanted to make sure I dropped this video because a lot of the levels that we were anticipating being breached to the downside, specifically for crypto, has occurred here in the last 24 hours or so. And it really begun with news over the weekend with FTX being insolvent. And so what does that really mean, guys? That means the books weren't looking very well. And that triggered a domino effect once Binance's exchange owner, CZ, made the decision to basically sell off his remaining holdings of FTT, which is FTX's native token. So we've had a very much, you can say, black swan event actually occurring right now. And we're going to take a look at the charts to see how this fundamental news matched up with our technicals that we've been pretty much discussing here now for, I would say, the last 2 months as to what we were expecting, which was more downside pressure. And that what we have really been seeing now here just in, I would say, maybe the last couple of weeks was relief rallies. And let's jump into it. So guys, you know what we do every week is we start with Bitcoin dominance. And so we know that we had been mostly in a downtrend now for weeks. And when we look here now on a weekly chart, we see here now, when we had this relief rally here in Bitcoin dominance, we'll jump down to the daily chart to see things a little bit better. That, when we had this rally, this was very congruent to Bitcoin, surging up to 21K. And that was mostly because the dollar was falling. So we had this rally and we were expecting it to top out, and it pretty much did. And if you look here at where it essentially stopped going higher, is because it was met with an area of resistance, meaning that in the past, this acted as a level of support. But once you break any level of support, it then becomes resistance. So this was a retest in this relief rally. And since then, we have been decreasing. And we know that this structure itself is been bearish. And so we're still expecting the price of Bitcoin to continue to decrease. But what we find very interesting is given all of the turmoil that we've had here now for, let's say, the last 2 days, that Bitcoin dominance hasn't really, sold off in a fashion compared to alts. So what is that really telling us? That although we are seeing this crash, this black swan event happening, that a lot of people may be moving their alts into Bitcoin and or stable coins for safe haven purposes, meaning that they're getting out of their more riskier plays to buy cheaper Bitcoin. Good way to think about it, but we would definitely keep our eyes to see what is going on. But that's pretty much Bitcoin dominance. I'm expecting it to continue to go lower, but not in the fashion in which, the alts are really selling off right now. And we're going to cross-analyze that once we jump over to the altcoin index chart. But that is Bitcoin dominance. We're currently in this little range right now. We made this pin bar candlestick yesterday. And as of right now, we, basically retested this area of resistance, and we're starting to pull back lower. And what that could eventually lead to is lower Bitcoin prices. And we'll jump into that chart here in just a few. So that's Bitcoin dominance, guys. And now what we've all been waiting for, the altcoin index, looks just like Ethereum right now. And we'll go over that chart here in a few. But this circle here we drew weeks and months ago, which was where we were being stopped out because we essentially hit an area of resistance. And as you see here in the last few weeks, of course, when we had the rally with Bitcoin, we also had the rally with Ethereum, Solana, and some of the other alts that, we were at a key level of resistance. And 1, 2, and 3, 4 attempts, we were unable to break through. So essentially what you got was a rejection of this area of resistance. And this is the price action that we're getting to follow through. So if we are analyzing and understanding the data that is being shown to us, what is it that we are coming to a conclusion about? Which is, although the entire market is going down, alts are bleeding much more in comparison to Bitcoin. So as of right now, the altcoin index is sitting at an area of support, but we're also on a weekly chart here. So we want to see how this plays out for the rest of the week, given that we do have the CPI data news tomorrow morning. So we want to take a look and see how that's going to influence the market too as well. But that is a lot. That is a lot of selling pressure, and to be expected once again, given we were at this level of resistance. And when you fail to break higher and continue, this is what is expected. So given that we've had this large move lower, I'm expecting maybe some sideways consolidation before we, continue lower. Essentially, we might drift off to the side a little bit lower, but eventually I believe we're going to take this low out. And I'm assuming this is going to happen given tomorrow that we have the epoch for Solana staking to be released, meaning all of the Solana that has been basically tied up in the epoch for staking is going to be available. That's going to hit the market. And given the already low prices, in which we're going to go over in a few, I'm expecting lower prices, period. And given the ripple effect that we've basically seen across the market, given the news with what has happened with FTX, basically the partnership that we thought was going to happen with the buyout from Binance no longer moving forward, it can get real nasty ugly here. So just kind of stay tuned for that to see how this is going to play out. But I'm expecting lower lows for this. And when we do so, is this to say that when this happens, I'm expecting a sub $1,000 Ethereum, a possible $5 Solana, and some more bleeding with the alts. But just stay tuned for that. So that is our altcoin index, guys. And now, let's see here. We're going to jump over to our next chart. Now we actually get a chance to take a look at Bitcoin. So does Bitcoin look bad? Yeah. Does it look as bad as some of the alts that we have seen? No, not really. We have finally, guys, broken this low that we have been waiting for. We've been waiting for this since we've had this pattern drawn out, which is every time, guys, I've mentioned, when you see this ascending wedge pattern happening, oops, that was an arrow. Essentially, you have this relief rally, prices going back up to retest areas of resistance, and you fail, it's only a matter of time before we get the meltdown. And so we finally got that. And where are we looking at next now? So there is some levels, between 16 and 15K, but ultimately we're looking at 12, 5, 13. And we just have to wait to see what happens when prices get there. But we can see why this is such a strong level looking at previous price action in history, where we've had prices spike above and break above. So it only makes sense to come back to retest these lows. And so, guys, this eventually will happen, given, though, that this massive drop has happened. I'm expecting, it not to just free fall. But could it happen? Yeah, it could. But if we are, really, really oversold, then we might get some pullback to retest these lows that we broke before we make our next leg lower, which is around that 12K, 13K range. So this is what we've always had as far as a target to the downside. We know that markets don't go straight up and straight down. You have price action where you're going to hit a temporary bottom, attempt to retrace in the form of a relief rally, come back and retest, and just range until we get, particular news that will drive prices to those lows and or highs, for example, in the bull market, for us to get this fulfillment of this pattern here. So guys, that's what I'm expecting for Bitcoin is, we've done a free fall here now in the last couple days. And we know that markets don't fall straight down forever. So I'm expecting somewhere in between, 15, 16K, that we kind of stall out for a little bit and start to, give us another relief rally or consolidate before we start to move into this lower range that we've been looking forward to as far as the target. So guys, that is Bitcoin. Keep an eye on that. Now Ethereum. Now Ethereum played out exactly what we were expecting. So as we see here, we have these arrows that we've been painting out here now for a while. And this all begun with this head and shoulders pattern that we had a few months ago that painted out on Ethereum. And we basically came back and retested that shoulder that we previously had, which was resistance, and the free fall begun. And so what is that telling us right now? We're currently sitting at a level of support, which makes sense because if we look left, this is where we had previous structure created before we had this relief rally. So now what is that to say? If we pull our arrows back here, what can happen is we get some consolidation here. And or if we make the decision for Ethereum to break down, then give us some of that sideways before we make our next leg lower. And what could that possibly look like? Well, I've always said that I wanted to see an $800 Ethereum. Yeah, that's a good retest of that. Now, if we go any lower than that, it could get really ugly. Not to say that this does happens. I don't think we're going to fall that low. Because there's other bits of structure in between these two areas. However, what we have seen and what we are seeing now is that we are waiting to see how this level of support holds, given that there's some bit of structure here as far as support levels. And if we're going to, consolidate, if we're going to consolidate there at the level of support, are we going to dip lower and then consolidate before continuing lower? So guys, just pay attention. Either way, this high that we had wasn't going to remain at high. In to say that we weren't going to rally more than what we were expected. This is what we were waiting for, to see if this was going to play out, and it did not. That just follows our analysis, which we were confirming lower prices and we are receiving them now. So guys, keep that in mind, given that Bitcoin has created a new low. The altcoin index is trending lower. That means we are in expectation for altcoins to continue lower, but not in a fashion where it's just going to be a continued free fall. The market's going to find some area of support and consolidate in that area, and or another relief rally before we continue lower. So that is Ethereum, guys. I'm still looking out for $800. And now the biggest news of all, we are revisiting Solana. So guys, we know the past few times that we talked about Solana, we mentioned, well, first, that there was this massive area of volatility here in the past, and that we knew we were expecting $25, $26, and $20 to at least be visited, given that this is where price has coming down, has made support in the past. And so now when we had this relief rally, back in the summertime, we failed to break it. We consolidated here now for a few months. We made one more push on the news before we got a rejection from the high again, unable to continue to go higher. And it only made sense, given that this market has been bearish, that we were going to eventually see these low prices. And guys, finally with Solana, We got it. And we got it violently. You're wondering why this looks so bad compared to Ethereum, compared to Bitcoin. And that's because Solana is basically the go-to for the FTX exchange with SBF. And given that the exchange has just about bankrupted, well, between that and the Alameda Research hedge fund, between the two of those, the companies held about 10% worth of the Solana supply. That is a lot, guys. And so we got violent here with price action, but it's not to say that this was not expected. Maybe not as quickly as we were expecting, but the play that we were expecting played out. And so what does that mean? That means it took out all of this, all of these areas of support. And currently right now, price of Solana is at 14, 16, but it came all the way as low as 12. And if you're wondering why, if you look to the left here on the screen, there was some support at those areas of $12. And so given we will keep an eye on where this daily candle closed for today, it can get real interesting here even more so. Possibly another $8 Solana before we completely bottom out. $5 psychological level is not out of play, but those are just some things to keep in mind as far as downside. Now, given that we've broken below these areas of support, I would not be surprised to see that, wherever it is that we stop it, given that we stop here, if we rally even to, $18 max, 22, because we know that everything doesn't fall straight down forever. We stabilize at some area of support and rally in the form of a relief rally before continuing lower. And so that means, do we stabilize here? Only price will determine that. The liquidity is the biggest concern right now with Solana. So we want to keep an eye on what happens here. Given what happens here, if we stabilize, and like I said, I expect some form of relief to go and retest these broken areas of support that we had, that is now acting as resistance. And then we wait to see, are we going to get that $8 Solana or that $5 Solana? And, that sounds scary given that this token at the peak of its, of the bull market was upwards of $250. But you got to remember, guys, too, Solana was $1, $2 at the beginning of the bull run. So even at prices now, if you bought then, you're still up. And given that Solana is really driven by VCs, that hasn't stopped the blockchain itself from delivering as far as utility. They had a major event last weekend where they came out and displayed many different things as far as projects that are still continuing to build. Now, does it change the fundamentals of what Solana is? Not necessarily, but price action is price action. Given what has happened with the news, we just want to pay attention to see what other developments come out from this story, and keep in mind what levels of support could we possibly bottom out in the near future, given that we had such violent price action. So guys, I'm watching for this area of $12 to see if it holds before we relief and or consolidate, and then maybe a possible visit to $8 or even $5. So that is Solana, guys. And now, most importantly, the DXY. What happened? Well, see this big line of trend that we've been in now. Like I said, we've been holding this line now here this moving average since June of last year. And what has happened every time we've retreated to this moving average, we've held it. And what is that to say? That's to say that the dollar may not be done. Now, I say may because we still created lower lows currently, and we are below this trend on a daily time frame. So is that to say that, we could be possibly going lower given the CPI data tomorrow? Yes. Would that line up with the fact that we will be able to bottom out temporarily with the crypto market and we see a relief rally? Yes. Is it to say that that's going to happen tomorrow? No. Is it to say that it can happen this month? Possibly. So you always want to have an ideal for what is possible. So if you're wondering now, why did it stop here? Well, if we look left, this acted as an area of support. And until we're able to take out these areas of resistance, the dollar is still pretty much bearish. However, things could flip in an instance, given we had the elections yesterday, we're still waiting on results, and we have this pressure in the crypto space, we have pressure on the stock market. Is it to say that the analysis has fully changed? No. But we know that, once again, like we mentioned with the crypto market, markets don't fall forever and they don't go up forever. And anytime you are, for example, here oversold, then you will start to experience some pullback, which is what we happen to see here today on the dollar. So now, guys, just keep an eye on that. We have the CPI data tomorrow. Wait for how the market reacts to that news. Then that's going to give us more perspective about what the dollar plans on doing, because I still want to see dollar come there to 104. But in order for that to happen, it still has to come to 108. And it still has to come down to 107. And it's not to say that that's going to happen tomorrow. However, depending on what this news looks like, given that we've made this top temporarily, that this is a possibility. If this happens, like I said, that's the relief we're expecting for the crypto market, given that the dollar is inverse to other risk on assets. So guys, that is possible what we're looking to see here. And or we get one more pop. Just keep an eye on it. Okay. So to sum up everything, what's going on? We had a very, very volatile weekend with FTX, the native token FTT, and Solana, as well as with Binance and CZ, which has caused this black swan event with crypto. We had the elections here yesterday, which caused some friction in the markets because we know that certain parties hold certain views on crypto. Now, today, leading in tomorrow, we have two major things. We have the Solana Epoch staking, where all the tokens are going to be released and put into the market, as well as we have the CPI data. Both of those events can have both a negative and or positive effect on the market itself. So guys, I say just hold on your hands for now. Allow the market to play itself out. Keep an eye on the levels that we've discussed. Have a strategic plan in place. Don't ever invest more than you are willing to lose. And once again, guys, this is not financial advice. This is purely for education. So other than that, guys, have a wonderful week and happy trading, happy investing.